I'm Clever Ghoul, but you can call me Nikki. Welcome to the channel. Today we are finally making that pheasant pillow. If you've been keeping up with my videos, you know that I bought this wild pattern up north when I went on my road trip for Halloween. It was $2 and it's just... Basically, we're making this pheasant pillow today. This guy here. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I haven't sewn in a while. I used to sew all the time. I'm a bit rusty, so I'm hoping I can do this in a day, but yeah, we'll see. I don't know if I've ever shared this on the channel, but I'm actually terrified of birds. I'm not gonna get into it.
I think they want to eat my eyeballs. I'm gonna leave it at that.
I think they're amazing from a distance and they're beautiful, but I don't want them near me. But I just couldn't resist this pillow. It's just absolutely cuckoo. There's also an amazing description on here about the pillow, and I want to do a dramatic reading for you all. This extraordinary pheasant is every crafter's dream. The rich hues and intricately detailed feather markings on the game bird have been authentically reproduced. Note the separate wings and stream of tail feathers. The ring-necked pheasant will make a striking decorative accent in your home. Display it among your other treasures or in a very special place of its own, on a mantle, shelf, or table. When completed, the bird will measure about 12 inches high from base to top of head and about 18 inches long from beak to tail end, about 36 inches long if the tail feathers are extended. So you understand now? I mean, between that description and just the audacity that this company had, I had to do this. I'm gonna try and throw this in my dryer and get some of the wrinkles out, and hopefully that works, and then we're gonna get to sewing. So I'll see you there, which is gonna be like right now for you.
Following the directions, I started with the wings. Using the wing front as a pattern, I cut out 2 pieces of batting. Next, I pinned 1 piece of batting to the wrong side of the wing front. Then, I basted the batting and fabric together. After this, you want to complete the wing. To do so, you pin the wing front and back together so the right sides are touching each other and the batting is facing out. Then I sewed, leaving the bottom straight edge open so that I could turn the wing back out. Once sewn together, I trimmed the batting edges and turned the wing inside out. And then, I had to repeat the process with the other wing. After these steps, I top stitched the wings according to the diagram in the instructions. Now it was time for the tail feathers. First, using the pre-printed pieces as a guide, I had to pin the tail feathers to batting and then cut them out. Like with the wings, I had to pin the piece of batting to the wrong side of fabric and baste them together. This was essentially the same process as before. I pinned the right sides together, stitched, left the straight edge open for turning out, trimmed the batting, clipped the seams, and turned the feathers out. I will say this part seemed the hardest, as the way this was printed made it really hard to see where you were sewing.
It's really, really hard to see as you're doing these tail feathers with this dark blue and then the dark blue pattern.
Finally, it was time for the body to be constructed. I placed the right sides together, pinned and basted the top edge as instructed. Then I stitched, clipped the curves, and turned the body inside out. At this point, I was getting a little loopy, so I decided to stop for the day. Time to attach the wings. With the right sides up, I spread the body apart and started to evaluate which wing went on which side. This part really confused my brain, and I am so grateful there was an image of the completed pheasant so that I could reference it here. I was very lost. With the right sides together, I pinned and basted the wing to the side of the pheasant where indicated on the body, making sure the tip of the wing faced towards the head as noted in the diagram. Then I stitched, turned the wing down so the tip faced the tail end, and repeated on the other side. Next, it was time to add the tail feathers. The instructions said to find the 2 dots on the back of the pheasant and with a ruler draw a pencil line between them. This line would serve as the guide to follow when attaching the tail feathers. Starting with the longest feather, I started lining up the tail feathers based on the detailed instructions. I pinned the feathers down, basted them, and then stitched them on. At last, the final steps of the project! Turning the pheasant wrong side out, I pinned and basted the side seams before stitching and clipping the edges. Then it was time to pin the oval bottom to the body. I also took the time to cut out a plastic canvas oval that will be needed to keep the bottom of the pheasant flat later. When cutting out the bottom, I made a pencil marking to show where to stop sewing. That way there'd be an opening to flip the bird back out and put the stuffing in. Pinning, basting, and sewing this oval bottom was the most difficult part of the project. I'll explain that in the reveal. Once sewn, it was time to start adding the polyfill stuffing. I hadn't done this in years, and I forgot how rigorous this part can be. Definitely an arm workout. When the pheasant was 3/4 of the way full, I added the plastic oval to the base, continued stuffing, closed the opening with a slip stitch, and tacked the wings and tail feathers in place.
I did it! So here she is. Or I guess it's he. Male pheasants, like most male birds, tend to be more colorful, so it's probably a boy. My biggest issue with this project that I kind of touched on earlier was sewing this bottom piece on. Attaching it was a big pain in the butt. In fact, the biggest issue with this project was the fabric. The fabric is really old. It's a vintage piece. I looked it up and it's either from the 70s or 80s. It hurts me to say something from the 80s is old because... But the fabric was really thin and cheap. So there were times where I was sewing and I could not quite see where the very edge of the pattern was. So maybe I went slightly over. When I went to try and seam rip it gently and take it out, all the fabric started fraying and falling apart. So basically any mistake I made had to stay. Once it was sewn down, it had to stay sewn down. Otherwise the fabric would just disintegrate. And so with that, it is a little wonky in some areas. There's some puckering in some areas, a little unevenness. But you know what? I think it's really fun. I think it's really silly. It's definitely something that's just going to be lurking in my house in different places, and you know, I love it. So yeah, overall I had a really fun time making this. I actually looked up the manufacturer. It was a company called VIP by Cranston Sew and Cut Pattern. I even found this same pattern online on eBay and I think it was like $12. So the fact that I got this for $2 makes me pretty happy. You can't go wrong with a $2 craft. I'm honestly kind of really addicted to the idea of finding cut and sew patterns now, and now I just want to find all of them and make them all. This is potentially just a hyperfixation that will pass in a few days. So anyway, if you could have any cut and sew pattern, what would it be? Like your dream cut and sew pattern? Would it be a cat? Would it be a pheasant? I don't know, tell me in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed making this week and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at cleverghoul.yt. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you next week. Bye!